Hey, Andrew, welcome to The Market is Open.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me. Today we're going to be talking about Nikola. They recently reverse IPO'd, reverse merged onto the stock market, and their stock popped a huge amount, right? It's down, I think, 18% today, but it's been going up and up ever since it IPO'd.
Yeah, sure. So today's June 10th, and the stock went up. It's gone up more than double, almost triple. It went to 90 past the valuation of Ford, which we'll soon get into, and now it's dropped a little back down. So I think in this video, we're just going to talk about what is this company? How does it compare to other automakers? Can it be the next Tesla?
Okay, so let's get started. They reverse IPO'd. I think you were saying that it's kind of sketchy to do this reverse merger type thing to get listed onto the stock exchange because they took over the stock VTIQ, which is like Vecto IQ, which is supposed to be there for mergers. Anyways, whatever. They're on the stock exchange now.
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't call it sketchy, but it's just something as an investor you should look into before buying the stock is just add it to sort of a bucket. I wouldn't count it. I wouldn't say it has any sketchy material from it, but it's just like a flag that needs to be checked into sort of thing, right? Like it's just like before you get a rental car, you look for all the scratches sort of thing. So you should look into why they chose to do a reverse merger, because typically it would be probably a little less beneficial for the owners. You would think they would normally want to sell out at a higher price and they want to do a roadshow and everything like that. So why did they want to do a reverse IPO? So that's just a question to look at, but I'm not going to count it as anything until I look into that. So that's the first thing. Then
analogy. Yeah. So let's talk about the makeup of the shareholders, because I think that there's a very small float. The CEO himself, he owns about 40% of the shares, and he says he's not allowed to sell for a year. I'm sure there's other directors also that aren't allowed to sell right away. So that means only a small portion of the float, the number of shares that are traded, are actually able to trade. And then there's a small supply, high demand, and the stock can be very volatile.
Yeah, so we see public shareholders 23 million, the stock is 80 million, so the public float is only about 1.6 billion. So we saw this with Tilray a couple of years ago when it spiked to 200. Definitely, I would think that a lot of the spike would have happened because there's a lot of people and there's not a lot of supply, so the price could change extremely rapidly. As a trader, some of your valuation may have been based on the small float. So this chart just shows the biggest car companies. Tesla today on June 10th became somehow the largest auto company, even though it's 1/20th the size of Toyota, just in terms of cars produced. And then Nikola, which is obviously more ridiculous than Tesla, because if I look back in 2013 when Tesla was at $300 a share, that value back then was about 34 billion, and Tesla had 2 billion of revenue. So Nikola is at 32 billion with no revenue. And the market for trucks is much, much smaller than cars. I understand people might be betting on them getting into more markets, but think about the market just for trucks, that if we assume they dominate trucks, it's not that big of a market. And just was looking before, I think there's 250,000 trucks sold per year in the US, and on average, they sell for 100,000. That's a $25 billion market. We'll get into the pricing of Nikola. They say they could sell it for more, so that will be something we'll talk about a bit. But you have to realize the market for trucks is, quite a bit smaller than cars.
Yeah, it's also interesting though, they do have 7 products. Like they have an electric truck, a hydrogen truck. They have this pickup truck. They have like a water, a Sea-Doo of some sort. So they have a whole bunch of different products, yet they haven't produced a single one yet. So it reminds me sort of the phone industry when everybody's trying to compete against Apple, and Apple's got a single product and everybody's just making, a whole bunch of different types of things to try to compete with Apple because they're not exactly sure what people like. So they're making like, one of each thing. This phone has, a keyboard. This phone has a touchscreen, all these different types of products, yet the iPhone sort of stood out among all the other products.
Yeah, and you like to call things vaporware, so like products that people announce but never come out. And I think I think it's smart for companies to do more what Tesla and Apple do, that as soon as you have something close to ready, you announce the product. Obviously, maybe you have to get a little ahead of yourself when you're trying to sell your stock initially, but obviously, I don't think it's such a great idea to show all these products that you can get into. It's better probably to more focus on one of the products. But they say they're going to sell 1,200 BEVs in 2022, and then they're going to do FCEV, which is the hydrogen trucks, in 2023. So are you saying these are two different trucks sort of thing?
I believe they are. Yeah, I can't remember the names. Trey and something else.
Yeah, so it seems kind of odd to me because even a big company like Toyota right now is sort of focusing on one of the markets. Tesla is focusing on the battery. Toyota's been mostly focusing on hydrogen. I guess it seems like most of the American car companies, correct me if I'm wrong, are focusing more on battery too.
Yeah,
So
I see a lot of battery, but I don't know why Toyota's the only company that's like very all in on hydrogen. It seems that they did announce some electric vehicles.
yeah, I was looking into that, but it seems interesting. Toyota stance. I want to look into that a bit more, sort of what's going to win out, or is it, sort of the market splits 50-50 between it, so that's something for a different video, but let's go to the next thing. So Tesla's newest rival is taking the stock market by storm. You had a few things to say about this article.
Yeah, so they're definitely taking the stock market by storm. I'm not sure about the actual car market or the actual truck market. This article does mention, they do have the Nikola Tre, which is a Class 8 battery electric vehicle, and the Nikola 2 Class 8, which is the Nikola 2, which is the fuel cell vehicle. So somehow they say that their revenue is going to be 5 times per each truck sold compared to other companies. So we were looking at how it's possible that they can get to 5 times the amount of revenue of another company. You just need to raise the price basically to get 5 times the amount of revenue.
So yeah, so they're saying, if we bring this up quickly, they're saying they can get 665,000 per truck, and that includes 230,000 for fueling. I'd have to look what that is, how much 700,000 miles for 7.5 kilograms, but I'm assuming that's about the same. So if you net that off, because the truck driver doesn't really care about that.
Well, if you look at dollars per mile, let's say that's about 33%. Well, they say 700 miles and $200,000, $230,000. That's about a third, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about 33 cents per mile, which is in line with what I was reading about Toyota. Toyota was saying hydrogen costs about 33 cents a mile.
So if we think about that, then the cost that they're saying for their truck is 665 minus like half of these 230, since you'd have to pay like 125 for the gas anyway. So they're saying we're going to sell you this truck for about 500, and right now the ordinary semi truck costs around 100. So that's a lot more expensive. And I think in that article that you were saying, they say it's 5 times. So that could be good, but it also is a risk that what kind of customer is going to pay 5 times the price?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay. So then the next thing, they say the fuel recharge time, several hours. I think you took issue with that. They say theirs will be 10 to 15 minutes. Diesel's 10 to 15 minutes. Tesla, you're saying, I guess I would like to see these things. I trust like the hydrogen in this sense, just because hydrogen's very easy for Tesla. For me, at least, it's a wait and see. If they could do it, then people can get excited for that. And I'm sure Tesla stock will go up on that. But so I guess it's like a speculative technology. Can they do it in 20 minutes for battery?
Yeah, it's definitely true that it could take a couple hours, but we haven't seen the specs from Tesla yet. So what they were doing last I looked was they were using like 5 superchargers to charge a single semi-truck. And if you do that, if you think about it, the semi-truck is, let's say, a megawatt battery, which is 10 times that of the Model S. So if you can do 80% of the Model S with the new superchargers in 20 minutes to half an hour, then maybe with 5 superchargers at the same time on a truck, you can do it in about twice that time. If they can put effectively 10 superchargers in a single mega charger, then they could do it in the same time that it takes to fill up the Model S, because they could charge all, let's say 10 batteries or 10 parts of this giant truck battery. They can charge them all in parallel. So we're not sure exactly what Tesla's planning for that yet.
Yeah,
but I'm
wondering what would be the CapEx to put like 10 superchargers together too, just to be skeptical of, I'm always skeptical of technologies, like at least with hydrogen, as skeptical it is of her cost. Like the fueling is not,
well, you don't need
skeptical. It's already like exists. Like you could do fuel at anything right now in 10 to 15 minutes. Well, the Tesla thing is you can be more skeptical because that doesn't exist, sort of thing.
Yes, but it would be cheaper than a regular supercharger station per stall. Like what I'm saying is that, let's say you built a supercharger station with 10 different stalls. So now you need to build something like some infrastructure for 10 different people to charge at the same time. Whereas if you just take that amount of electricity and stick it into one charger, then you only need to build one charger and just increase the amount of power that goes to that charger. So your CapEx isn't really that much higher. You're just increasing the power that a single charger can deliver. And then you're building the truck in such a way that it can charge all the batteries in parallel.
Okay. And you could only charge, I assume, one truck at a time, or how many trucks could you then charge?
Yeah, you just build one supercharger, one mega charger per stall. So you're just basically increasing the power that a mega charger can deliver by a huge factor, and then wiring it properly.
Yeah, anyways, I don't know. Like I'd have to look into it, or we'd have to have a longer discussion to see over the cost. I'm just saying, like, it will be interesting to see if Tesla can do that, but that's like one thing to be
like if Tesla didn't do that, it would take like 5 hours to charge the truck. So that doesn't make any sense. I find it difficult to believe that they're going to launch a truck where it's going to sit there for 5 hours charging. But I just did want to touch on a couple of things that the CEO said in an interview. He was saying that he basically charges. So in order to make hydrogen, you split water using electrolysis, and you use electricity to do that. So by doing that, you're taking electricity from, let's say, solar or something, or the grid, and then you lose some efficiency by converting it into hydrogen, and then you have to put it into the car or the truck and then convert it back into electricity. So the argument for electric is, why not just put that electricity directly into the car battery? And so he's saying that it costs him 4 cents because he does it off peak hours. He gets like a very good deal. Normally electricity costs 10 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour. The CEO of Nikola says he can get it for 4 cents. However, the counter argument to that, like he's converting hydrogen to 4 cents for electricity. Counter argument is, why not just take that 4 cents and stick it into a battery? So he doesn't seem to be including that. He also says the hydrogen is better than electric unless you have like a lot of cycles for your battery. So let's say 20,000 cycles, he was saying, but then he later on says 3,000. So anyways, Tesla says everybody seems to be talking about this 1,000,000-mile battery, and that sort of, puts a wrench in the spoke. What's the saying? So he's basically admitting that a lot of cycles would not be good for hydrogen, yet there's a lot of batteries coming out with a lot of cycles. However, Nikola says that they've invented their own battery technology, and they have this really good battery technology, and they're going to give it to, these big players. However, they also said that they just found some professors, and they didn't really invent it themselves. They just found some professors that were working on battery technology for a long time. They sort of aggregated their work together, and they're sending it off to big manufacturers and collecting a royalty. So that doesn't sound like they've really invented, it doesn't sound like they're really focused on.
I guess like Tesla, I'm always skeptical of things that aren't invented or they haven't shown us sort of thing yet. It's hard to pay for that. So then the next thing is Andrew Left. He's sort of a notable short seller, and I guess he's notable on both sense, in the sense that he's made some pretty good calls, one of them Valiant Pharmaceuticals. He just said he was skeptical of the stock. I think we're both skeptical as well. I'm actually, I think Tesla is extremely overvalued, but I think Nikolai is like, I'd buy Tesla in a heartbeat over Nikolai, just because I said at the start that its valuation is even more than Tesla was in 2013 when Tesla had $2 billion in revenue. So its valuation right now is like 25, 26 billion. It's a little ridiculous. So then the next thing, we talked about how they're selling both cars, which seems a little speculative because Tesla is much larger. It's only in one of the markets. Most of the companies have picked one market, so that's a bit speculative.
Well, just kind of along the lines you were saying. Yeah, so that's their, I guess, their production schedule. That's the number of units that they're going to be selling. So 600 units next year is what their plan is. However, like when the CEO of Nikola, Trevor Milton, was asked, a couple of days ago, how he was feeling after the IPO, it was interesting because he was like, yeah, it took like a lot of work to get to where we are today, but like now I'm really relieved. All we need to do is, ramp up the cars, and that's a piece of cake. But when Tesla had to ramp up the cars, that was called production hell, and it was the worst thing. The company almost went bankrupt. So I'm interested to know how they're going to ramp up to a large number of trucks over the next couple of years so easily.
Yeah, well, 7,000 that much? Like, that's probably one of the disappointing things is like...
yeah, if you're building them by hand, I guess it's not a lot.
Yeah, I guess like the whole truck market is 250,000, 7,000. It's, it's a lot of revenue, I guess. It's like
it's kind of a weird, that's in 4 years from now, 7,000. So you're up against now, Tesla has just announced that they're going to be mass producing their truck. So when they mass produce something, they build a factory usually to do that. So I don't know if Nikola is just building them by hand or something, or because it's easy to build a prototype. They could just build a second prototype and a third prototype.
mhm.
That's how they mass produce them. But that's not a great way. It's not very scalable.
For sure. Yeah, no, it definitely is something to look into. How are they going to get this? And I definitely, I mean, when they see this projection, I was taking it with a grain of salt already. That's it for Nikola. So I guess, would you buy the stock? I personally would obviously not be buying Nikola stock. It's, the truck market's much smaller than
Yeah.
the whole car market, and Tesla's in a bunch of different markets. And so Nikola's value is like already 1/6 of Tesla, but I personally wouldn't be buying either stock. But
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
looking
I guess you
into
like Tesla still, and I'm trying to look more into hydrogen. I'm interested in that technology. I think Nikolai brought that to my forefront. I kind of want to research it a little bit more. How scalable is that going forward? So I think they brought the technology to my attention, but I'm not really so interested in their company.
Yeah, I was looking at the put prices for Nikola, but the puts themselves are overpriced because the stock was down 18% today, and the puts were also down. So that doesn't. I mean, obviously the puts were overvalued. No, I don't want to touch anything. I don't want to short it. I don't want to buy it.
Okay, great, great video. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Please hit the bell button and hit the like button and subscribe.